The diner's neon sign flickered, casting a red glow over Elliot's face as he stood outside, hands shoved deep into his coat pockets. Snowflakes clung to his graying beard, but he didn't brush them off, barely noticed. The whispers from inside, sharp as broken glass, cut deeper than the December cold ever could. Elliot Kane, known to the kids of Willow Creek as Santa for his years of playing the jolly figure at the town's Christmas festival, had become a pariah overnight. At 50, he'd lived quietly, running the local hardware store, fixing porch swings for neighbors, and slipping extra candy canes to shy kids. But last month, a single photo Elliot holding hands with another man at a bar in the next town over had spread like wildfire through Willow Creek's gossip chain. By morning, Santa was no longer the town's beloved figure. He was a scandal, a sinner, a man to be shunned. The diner door swung open, and Mrs. Callahan, the town's self-appointed moral compass, stepped out. Her lips curled as she spotted Elliot. "You shouldn't be here," she spat, clutching her purse like a shield. "Think of the children." Elliot's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He'd learned silence was safer. Across the street, 15-year-old Sam Harper watched from the shadows of the town square. His notebook, filled with half-written stories and doodles, pressed against his chest. Sam wasn't like the other kids in Willow Creek. He didn't care for football or hunting. He cared about stories, real ones, the kind that made you feel something. And Elliot's story, the one the town was trying to erase, was calling to him. Sam had seen the photo too. It was grainy, posted on the town's private Facebook group with a caption that made his stomach turn. "Our Santa is a disgrace. Keep him away from our kids." The comments were worse, hundreds of them, from people Sam had known his whole life. His history teacher called Elliot unnatural. His neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, said he'd never shop at Elliot's store again. Even Sam's own father had muttered, "Some things are better left hidden." But Sam didn't understand why any kind of love should be hidden. He stepped forward, boots crunching in the snow, and approached Elliot. "Mr. Kane." His voice was small but steady. Elliot turned, surprise flickering in his tired eyes. I'm sorry about what they're saying. It's not right." Elliot's shoulders softened. "Just a fraction. You're Tom Harper's boy, aren't you?" he asked, his voice low and rough, like he hadn't spoken in days. Sam nodded. "You don't need to get mixed up in this, kid. It's a losing battle." "Maybe," Sam said, gripping his notebook tighter. "But I don't think you're a disgrace. I think you're brave." Those words hung in the air, fragile but heavy. Elliot stared at him, something like hope flickering behind the pain in his eyes. For the first time in weeks, he didn't feel entirely alone. Willow Creek was a small town, the kind where everyone knew your name and your business. It sat nestled in upstate New York, surrounded by pine forests and rolling hills. The kind of place that looked like a postcard in winter, but felt like a cage when you didn't fit in. Elliot had grown up here, left for a few years in his 20s, and returned to take over his father's hardware store. He'd never planned to be a hero or a villain, just a man who loved his town and, quietly, loved a man named Daniel, who lived an hour away and visited when the world wasn't watching. Daniel was the opposite of Elliot in so many ways: outspoken, confident, a lawyer who wore sharp suits and laughed loud enough to fill a room. They'd met 5 years ago at a bookshop in Albany, bonding over a shared love of old mystery novels. Their relationship was private, not out of shame, but because Elliot knew Willow Creek wasn't ready for it. He'd seen what happened to others who dared to be open, families who moved away, kids who got bullied until they broke. So he kept Daniel a secret. Until that photo, taken by some stranger with a smartphone, shattered the illusion. Now, The town's Christmas festival was 2 weeks away, and the committee had already replaced Elliot as Santa. The role went to Mr. Callahan, a man who smelled of cigars and whose laugh sounded forced. The kids didn't light up for him the way they had for Elliot, who'd spent hours learning their names and sneaking them extra hot cocoa. Sam had loved those moments as a kid, sitting on Santa's knee, telling him about the stories he wanted to write. Elliot had always listened, really listened, like Sam's dreams mattered. Sam wasn't sure why he felt so drawn to Elliot now. Maybe it was because he'd always felt different too, not gay, as far as he knew, but out of place in a town that prized conformity. He spent his nights writing stories about heroes who stood up to crowds, who changed the world with a single act of courage. And now, here was Elliot, a real person facing a real crowd. Sam wanted to help, but he was just a kid with a notebook and no plan. That night, Sam sat at his desk, the glow of his laptop casting shadows on the walls. He opened the town's Facebook group, scrolling through the hate-filled comments about Elliot. One post stood out, a petition to ban Elliot from the Christmas festival altogether. It had 200 signatures. Sam's heart sank. But then he noticed something else, a single comment, buried under the vitriol, from a user named Bookworm42. Elliot Kane has done more for this town than any of you. Shame on you all. Sam clicked the profile. It was anonymous, but the bio mentioned a love of mystery novels. Could it be Daniel? Sam typed a private message to Bookworm42. I want to help Mr. Kane. Do you know him? He hit send, his heart racing. Maybe this was the start of something, a way to fight back, to rewrite the story the town was telling about Elliot. He didn't know how, but he knew he couldn't stay silent. Across town, Elliot sat in his small apartment above the hardware store, staring at a photo of him and Daniel from last summer. They were laughing, arms around each other, the lake behind them shimmering in the sunlight. He hadn't heard from Daniel since the photo leaked. Daniel had begged him to move to Albany, to start over where they could be open about their love. But Elliot couldn't leave Willow Creek. This was his home, even if it didn't feel like it anymore. The phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Kane. It's Sam Harper. I meant what I said. I'm not giving up on you. Elliot's chest tightened. He didn't know what a kid could do against a town full of hate. But for the first time in weeks, he felt a spark of something he'd almost forgotten: hope. Sam's message to Bookworm42 went unanswered for 2 days, and he started to wonder if he'd been too bold. He sat in his room, the notebook open to a blank page, pencil tapping restlessly against the paper. Outside, Willow Creek was dressing itself up for Christmas lights strung across Main Street. Wreaths on every lamppost, but the festive cheer felt hollow to Sam. How could a town that loved Christmas, a holiday about kindness, turn so cruelly on one of its own? At school, the whispers about Elliot were inescapable. In the cafeteria, Sam overheard a group of seniors laughing about Santa's secret. One of them, Jake, a linebacker with a mean streak, mimicked Elliot's gentle voice, drawing snickers from the table. Sam's hands clenched under the table, but he stayed quiet. Speaking up here, in front of everyone, felt like stepping into a lion's den. Instead, he scribbled in his notebook, "Heroes don't wait for permission. They act." That afternoon, Sam rode his bike to the hardware store. The sign read closed, but a faint light glowed from the upstairs window. He knocked, half expecting no answer, but the door creaked open. Elliot stood there, his flannel shirt wrinkled, eyes heavy with exhaustion. "Sam," he said, voice cautious, "what are you doing here?" "I want to help," Sam blurted. "I don't know how yet, but I know you don't deserve this. I sent a message to someone who might know you. Bookworm42. I think they're on your side." Elliot's expression shifted. a mix of surprise and wariness. Bookworm 42. He repeated softly. You're digging deep. Kid. He stepped aside, gesturing for Sam to come in. The store was dim, shelves stocked with nails and paint cans, the air smelling of sawdust. Upstairs, Elliot's apartment was small but warm, with a worn couch and a shelf crammed with books. A photo of Elliot and another man sat on the coffee table, the same one from the leaked picture. Is that him? Sam asked, pointing. Elliot nodded, his face softening. Daniel. He's a good man. Better than I deserve. Probably. His voice cracked, and he looked away. He wants me to leave Willow Creek. Says it's not worth fighting for a place that hates me. Sam sat on the couch, his notebook in his lap. Do you want to leave? He asked. Elliot didn't answer right away. He walked to the window, staring out at the snow-covered street. This town's been my home for 50 years. I fixed their roofs, shoveled their driveways. I was their Santa. But now, he trailed off, shaking his head. Now I'm nothing to them. You're not nothing, Sam said fiercely. You're still Santa. They can't take that away. Elliot looked at him, a faint smile breaking through the sadness. You're a stubborn one, aren't you? Sam grinned, but his mind was racing. He needed a plan, something bigger than a kind word or a message to a stranger. He opened his notebook, showing Elliot a sketch of the town square with the Christmas festival stage. What if we reminded them who you are? Not the lies they're telling, but the real you, the Santa they loved. Elliot raised an eyebrow. You think they'll listen to a kid and well, me? They'll listen if we make them, Sam said, his voice steady with a confidence he didn't fully feel. He didn't know how to make a whole town listen, but he knew stories had power. He'd grown up on books about underdogs who changed the world. Maybe he could write a new chapter for Elliot. That night, Sam got a reply from Bookworm 42. I know Elliot. Meet me at the library tomorrow. For P.M. Come alone. Sam's heart pounded. Was this Daniel? Someone else? He didn't tell Elliot. Naive didn't want to get his hopes up. But as he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, he felt the weight of what he was taking on. This wasn't just about Elliot anymore. It was about proving something to Willow Creek, to his dad, to himself. The next day, Sam arrived at the library, a squat brick building with frosted windows. Inside, it smelled of old books and coffee. A man in his late 40s, with sharp cheekbones and a navy coat, stood by the mystery section. He turned as Sam approached, his eyes scanning the boy with quiet intensity. You're Sam, he said. Not a question. I'm Daniel. Sam's breath caught. This was the man from the photo, the one Elliot loved. You're here to help him, right? Sam asked, clutching his notebook like a lifeline. Daniel's jaw tightened. I've been trying to help him for years. But Elliot's stubborn. He thinks he can change this town. He paused, his voice softening. You're the first person here who stood up for him. Why? Sam hesitated, then opened his notebook, showing Daniel a page filled with notes about Elliot stories he'd heard from kids about Santa. Memories of Elliot fixing bikes for free, giving out gloves to kids who couldn't afford them. Because he's good, Sam said simply. And good people deserve better. Daniel's eyes softened, and he nodded. You're right. But this town, they're not going to make it easy. That petition to ban him from the festival, it's got the mayor's attention now. If we're going to fight, we need to be smart. Sam felt a surge of determination. Then let's be smart. Let's show them who Elliot really is. Daniel studied him for a long moment, then pulled out his phone. I've got an idea. But it's risky, and Elliot won't like it. What is it? Sam asked, leaning forward. Daniel's voice dropped to a whisper. We go public. Not just in Willow Creek, but beyond. We tell Elliot's story as real Storito the world. Sam's eyes widened at Daniel's words. Go public. The idea sent a shiver through him. Equal parts excitement and fear. Willow Creek was small. Insular, its people didn't take kindly to outsiders meddling in their affairs. But as he stood in the library, Daniel's steady gaze anchoring him, Sam realized this might be their only shot. Public how? Sam asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Daniel leaned against a bookshelf, his fingers tracing the spine of a worn Agatha Christie novel. I know a journalist in Albany, he said. She writes for a progressive outlet. Big following online. If we can get her to cover Elliot's story, how this town turned on him for being himself, it could put pressure on Willow Creek. Shame them into doing the right thing. Sam frowned, flipping open his notebook to a blank page. But what if it makes things worse? What if they hate him more? Daniel's expression darkened, but he didn't sugarcoat it. That's the risk. Some folks will double down, but others, they might start to question themselves. And that's where change begins. Sam nodded, scribbling down journalist. Albany. Pressure. He wasn't sure he fully understood the plan, but he trusted Daniel's confidence. Will you talk to her? He asked. Daniel hesitated, then pulled out his phone. I'll set up a meeting. But you need to be there. Sam, you're the one who reached out. You're the heart of this. The weight of those words settled on Sam's shoulders. He was just a kid, not even old enough to drive. Yet here he was plotting to take on an entire town. He thought of his dad, who'd warned him to stay out of adult business. If he did this, there'd be no going back. But then he pictured Elliot, alone in his apartment, the man who'd once made him believe in magic as a kid. Sam straightened. I'm in. The next day, Sam told Elliot about the meeting with Daniel. They sat in the hardware store, the air heavy with the scent of pine from a stack of Christmas wreaths Elliot hadn't sold. Elliot's face paled when he heard the plan. A journalist, he said, running a hand through his graying hair. You want to turn my life into a headline. Sam, this town will eat me alive. They're already doing that. Sam shot back, surprising himself with his sharpness. They're not listening now. Maybe they will if the whole world's watching. Elliot stared at him, then let out a low chuckle. You're too smart for your own good, kid. Daniel arrived an hour later, his presence filling the small store with a quiet intensity. He and Elliot locked eyes, and for a moment, Sam felt like an intruder. There was a history there, unspoken but heavy, a love that had weathered years of secrecy. You didn't have to come, Elliot said softly. Daniel shrugged, a small smile tugging at his lips. You think I'd let you face this alone? The three of them sat around a rickety table in the back, mapping out their next steps. Daniel's journalist friend, Mia, agreed to meet them in Albany the next day. She wanted to hear Elliot's story firsthand, but she also wanted Sam's perspective, a kid standing up for what was right. Sam felt a mix of pride and nerves. He'd never spoken to a journalist before, let alone one who might put his words on the internet for thousands to see. That night, Sam's dad noticed his distraction at dinner. You're quiet, Tom Harper said, cutting into his steak. Something on your mind? Sam hesitated. He hadn't told his dad about Elliot or Daniel or the journalist. Tom was a good man, but he was part of Willow Creek's old guard traditional. Wary of change. Just school stuff, Sam mumbled, pushing his peas around his plate. But the truth was eating at him. He wanted to tell his dad, to make him see what he saw in Elliot. Instead, he went to his room and wrote in his notebook, a hero doesn't wait for approval. A hero fights for what's right. even when it's hard. He underlined it twice, then closed the book. The next morning, Sam and Daniel drove to Albany in Daniel's sleek black car. Elliot stayed behind, too nervous to face Mia yet. The city felt like a different world. Tall buildings, bustling streets, people who didn't care who you loved. Mia met them at a coffee shop, her laptop open, her eyes sharp but kind. "So, Sam," she said, leaning forward, "why's this story matter to you?" Sam took a deep breath, his notebook open in front of him. "Because Elliot's a good person. He's been Santa for years, made kids happy, fixed things for people who couldn't pay. But now, just because he loves someone, they're acting like he's a monster. It's not fair." Mia nodded, typing furiously. "And you, Daniel, you're Elliot's partner." Daniel's jaw tightened, but he nodded. 5 years. He's the best man I know. But Willow Creek, they're trying to erase him." Mia's eyes softened. This is a powerful story. Small-town prejudice. A kid's courage. A man's resilience. I can work with this. By the time they left, Mia had promised to write a draft and send it to them within days. Sam felt a flicker of hope, but also fear. What if the town turned on him next? As they drove back to Willow Creek, Daniel glanced at him. "You did good, Sam. Elliot's lucky to have you." When they told Elliot about the meeting, he was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "If this goes wrong, it's not just me they'll come for. You ready for that, Sam?" Sam swallowed hard but nodded. "I'm ready." Mia's article hit the internet 3 days later, and Willow Creek erupted. The headline was bold: "Small town shuns its Santa for being gay, one teen fights back." Sam's phone buzzed nonstop with notifications from the town's Facebook group. Some comments were supportive, calling Elliot a hero, but most were venomous. Outsiders stirring up trouble. One read, "That kid should know his place," said another. Sam's name wasn't in the article. Mia had kept him anonymous, but people weren't stupid. They knew who the teen was. At school, Sam felt eyes on him. Jake and his friends cornered him in the hallway, their smirks sharp as knives. "You think you're some kind of hero, Harper?" Jake sneered, defending that freak. Sam's heart pounded, but he stood his ground. "He's a better man than you'll ever be," he shot back. Jake shoved him against a locker, but a teacher's voice broke the moment, and the boys scattered. Sam didn't tell Elliot or Daniel about the incident. He didn't want them to worry. But when he got home, his dad was waiting, the article open on his laptop. "This you?" Tom asked, his voice low but heavy. Sam froze. "Ah, yeah? It's me." Tom's face was unreadable. "You're getting involved in something dangerous, Sam. This town doesn't like change. You're putting a target on your back." Sam's chest tightened. "I know, but someone has to stand up for what's right." Tom stared at him, then sighed. "You're braver than I was at your age. But be careful." The article wasn't just local news. It spread across social media, picked up by bigger outlets. By the next day, Willow Creek was trending, and not in a good way. Reporters from Albany and even New York City started calling the mayor's office, asking about the Santa scandal. The Christmas festival, just a week away, was suddenly under a spotlight. The petition to ban Elliot had grown to 300 signatures. But a counter-petition, started by an anonymous user, Sam suspected Daniel, was gaining traction too. Elliot, meanwhile, was a wreck. He hadn't left his apartment since the article dropped, terrified of the backlash. When Sam visited, he found Elliot staring at his phone, scrolling through comments. "They're calling me a predator now," Elliot said, his voice hollow. "I spent my life helping kids, and this is what they think of me." Sam sat beside him, his notebook open. They're wrong. And people are starting to see that. Look at the counter petition, it's got 150 signatures already. Elliot shook his head. That's not enough. Not against this town. Daniel arrived, his face grim. The mayor called me. He said, they're considering canceling the festival to avoid more bad press. They're blaming you. Elliot. Elliot's hands clenched. Maybe they should. Maybe I should just leave. No, Sam said, standing up. You're not running. We're going to fight this. Together. He pulled out his notebook, showing them a plan he'd been working on. It was rough, but it was something, a public event. Not at the festival, but before it, where Elliot could speak to the town. Not as Santa, but as himself. You tell them your story, Sam said. Not the one they're making up, but the truth. Who you are, what you've done for them. Elliot looked skeptical, but Daniel nodded. The kid's right. You've been hiding too long. Let them see you. Elliot rubbed his face. Exhaustion etched into every line. And if they don't listen? Then we tried, Sam said. But I think some will. I know they will. The next day, Sam and Daniel started spreading the word about the event. They couldn't use the town square, Mrs. Callahan and her allies had made sure of that, so they chose the empty lot behind the hardware store. Sam made flyers on his laptop. Simple but bold. Hear Elliot Kane's story. Saturday, 6 p.m. He slipped them under shop doors, taped them to lampposts, and handed them out at school, ignoring the glares from Jake and his crew. By Saturday, Sam was a bundle of nerves. He stood in the lot, helping Daniel set up a small stage, a few wooden pallets, and a microphone borrowed from the library. A crowd was forming, maybe 50 people, a mix of curious and hostile faces. Sam spotted his dad in the back, arms crossed, watching silently. His heart sank. Was Tom here to support him or to drag him home? Elliot stepped onto the stage, his hands shaking. He looked out at the crowd, his voice unsteady at first. I've lived in Willow Creek my whole life. He began. I've fixed your fences, shoveled your snow, played Santa for your kids. I never asked for much. But I'm not ashamed of who I am. I love a man named Daniel. And that doesn't make me less of a person. The crowd was quiet, but Sam could feel the tension. Some faces softened, others hardened. Then Mrs. Callahan stepped forward, her voice cutting through the cold air. You're a disgrace. Elliot Kane. You don't belong here. A few people clapped, but others shifted uncomfortably. Sam's heart raced. He hadn't planned to speak, but he couldn't stay silent. He climbed onto the stage, grabbing the microphone. You're wrong, he said, his voice trembling but loud. Elliot's the best of us. He's kind. He's generous. And he's brave. If you can't see that, you're the ones who don't belong. The crowd gasped. Sam felt his dad's eyes on him, but he didn't look back. He was done being afraid. The silence that followed Sam's words was deafening. The crowd stood frozen, their breath visible in the chilly evening air. Elliot reached out, placing a steadying hand on Sam's shoulder, his eyes wide with a mix of pride and fear. Sam's heart pounded so hard he thought it might burst, but he held the microphone tight, refusing to back down. Mrs. Callahan's face twisted with indignation. You're just a child, she snapped. You don't understand what's at stake here. But before she could continue, a voice from the crowd cut through a woman, maybe in her 30s, with a toddler clinging to her leg. Let the boy speak, she said, her tone firm. He's got more guts than most of you. Sam recognized Herms Larson, who ran the bakery. She'd always given him free cookies when he was younger. Her support gave him a spark of courage. I'm not saying I know everything, Sam said, his voice steadier now. But I know right from wrong. Mr. Kane's been good to this town. You all know it. You've seen it. So why are you punishing him for who he loves? A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some nodded. Others whispered to their neighbors. But Mrs. Callahan wasn't done. This is about protecting our values, she said, her voice rising. Our children deserve better than this. She gestured at Elliot like he was something shameful. Daniel stepped forward, his lawyer's poise cutting through the tension. Values, he said, his voice calm but razor sharp. What about kindness? What about fairness? You've known Elliot for years. Has he ever hurt anyone? The crowd shifted, some looking down, others glaring at Daniel. He didn't flinch. You're not protecting your kids. You're teaching them to hate. The words hung heavy. Sam saw his dad in the back, his face unreadable, but his arms no longer crossed. Was he listening? Sam couldn't tell. But he noticed others. Mr. Jenkins from the gas station, the librarian, even a few kids from school watching with something new in their eyes. Doubt. Maybe. Or guilt. Elliot took the microphone again, his voice soft but steady. I don't want to fight you, he said. I just want to live my life. If you can't accept me, that's your choice. But I'm not leaving. This is my home. He paused, his eyes finding Daniel in the crowd. And I'm done hiding who I love. A few people clapped him. Larson, the librarian, a couple of teenagers. But others turned and walked away, their footsteps crunching in the snow. Sam's heart sank. Had they failed? But then he saw a girl from his English class, Lily, step forward. She was quiet, usually invisible. But now she spoke up. I think you're brave, Mr. Kane, she said. My brother's gay. He left town because of people like her. She pointed at Mrs. Callahan, who bristled but said nothing. The event ended without fanfare. The crowd dispersed, some lingering to shake Elliot's hand, others muttering as they left. Sam's dad approached, his expression conflicted. You meant what you said up there? He asked. Sam nodded. Every word. Tom sighed, then put a hand on Sam's shoulder. I'm proud of you. But this isn't over. That night, the town's Facebook group exploded again. The counter-petition had jumped to 400 signatures, and Mia's article was shared thousands of times. But so was the hate. Someone had spray-painted "freak" on the hardware store's window. Elliot saw it the next morning and cleaned it off without a word. But Sam could see the toll it was taking. They're not going to stop, Elliot said, his voice heavy. Maybe Daniel's right. Maybe I should leave. No, Sam said, his voice fierce. If you leave, they win. We're not done yet. He pulled out his notebook, showing Elliot a new idea, a letter to the town, written by him and signed by everyone who supported Elliot. We'll post it online. Put it in the paper. Everywhere. Let them see how many people are on your side. Elliot looked skeptical. But Daniel, who'd been listening quietly, nodded. It's a start. But we need to do more. The festival's in 3 days. If we can get you back as Santa, it'll send a message. Elliot laughed. A bitter sound. They'll never let me near that suit again. Then we make our own, Sam said, his eyes lighting up. Our own Santa. Our own event. Right here. In this lot. We'll show them what Christmas is really about. Daniel raised an eyebrow, but a smile tugged at his lips. You're relentless, kid. Over the next 2 days, Sam, Daniel, and a small group of supporters Larson, Lily, The librarian worked tirelessly. They turned the lot into a makeshift festival space, with string lights, a donated Christmas tree, and a Santa chair borrowed from the diner. Sam wrote the letter, pouring his heart into every word. It wasn't just about Elliot. It was about everyone who'd ever felt like they didn't belong. He posted it online, and by the next morning, it had 500 likes and dozens of comments from people sharing their own stories. But the backlash grew too. The mayor announced that the official festival would go ahead, with Mr. Callahan as Santa, and no disruptions would be tolerated. Mrs. Callahan and her allies organized a protest outside the hardware store, chanting about family values. Sam saw it from his bedroom window and felt a knot in his stomach. Had he pushed too far? The night before their event, Sam couldn't sleep. He sat at his desk, his notebook open, writing, sometimes. Doing what's right feels like losing. But you keep going, because even one person believing in you makes it worth it. He thought of Elliot, of Daniel, of his dad's quiet pride. He wasn't alone anymore. The morning of the makeshift festival dawned crisp and clear. The lot behind the hardware store transformed into something magical. String lights twinkled against the snow, and the Christmas tree glowed with ornaments donated by supporters. Sam stood in the center, his breath visible in the cold, watching as volunteers set up tables with hot cocoa and cookies. It wasn't the grand town square, but it felt like something better, something real. Elliot was nervous, pacing behind the Santa chair. He wore a red jacket, not the full Santa suit, but close enough to make the point. "This is crazy," he muttered to Daniel, who was adjusting a microphone stand. "What if no one shows up?" Daniel squeezed his shoulder. "They'll come." Sam made sure of that. Sam had spent the last day spreading the word, posting on social media, texting classmates, even knocking on doors. His letter had gone viral locally, shared by people he didn't even know. The counter petition now had 600 signatures, and comments poured in from outside Willow Creek, people moved by Elliot's story, by Sam's courage. But Sam knew the real test was today. Would the town show up? Or would they stay loyal to the official festival? By noon, people started arriving. Ms. Larson brought trays of gingerbread, her toddler waddling behind her. Lily and a few other kids from school showed up, their parents in tow. The librarian, Mrs. Patel, brought a stack of books to give away, her smile warm as she hugged Elliot. "You've got more friends than you think," she said. Sam's heart lifted, but he kept scanning the crowd for his dad. Tom hadn't said whether he'd come, and Sam wasn't sure he could handle his absence. Then he saw Jake and his crew lurking at the edge of the lot, their smirks unmistakable. Sam's stomach dropped. Were they here to cause trouble? He moved toward Elliot, ready to warn him, but Daniel intercepted him. "Let me handle them," he said, his voice calm but firm. "You focus on the event." As the afternoon unfolded, more people arrived, maybe 100, more than Sam had dared hope. Elliot sat in the Santa chair, talking to kids who ran up with wide eyes, their parents watching with a mix of curiosity and hesitation. Sam handed out cocoa, his notebook tucked into his jacket, his heart racing with every new face. Some were supporters, others were just curious, but they were here. Then Mrs. Callahan arrived, flanked by a dozen of her allies, holding signs that read, "Protect our kids and keep Christmas pure." Sam's hands clenched. He wanted to scream, to tell them they were wrong. But Daniel's steady hand on his shoulder kept him grounded. "Ignore them," Daniel whispered. "They want to fight. Don't give it to them." Elliot stood, taking the microphone. The crowd quieted, even Mrs. Callahan's group. "Thank you for coming," he said. his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. I know this isn't the official festival. I know some of you don't want me here. But I'm here because I love this town. I always have. And I believe in Christmas, not just the lights and the presents, but what it means. Kindness. Hope. Love. A few people clapped. But Mrs. Callahan's voice cut through. You're no Santa. She shouted. You're a sinner. The word stung. But before Sam could respond, another voice spoke of his dad's. Tom stepped forward. His face set. That's enough. Margaret, he said. You don't speak for all of us. Sam's jaw dropped. His dad stood tall. His eyes locked on Mrs. Callahan. Elliot's been a better neighbor than most of you. He's fixed my porch. Helped my kid with his bike. Played Santa for years. You want to talk about sin? Look at yourselves. Tearing a good man down. The crowd murmured. Some nodding. Others looking away. Mrs. Callahan's face reddened. But she didn't back down. This is about our values. She insisted. Tom shook his head. No. It's about your fear. And I'm done with it. Sam felt tears prick his eyes. He ran to his dad, who pulled him into a rough hug. I'm proud of you, kid. Tom whispered. You were right. For the first time, Sam felt like they were on the same side. Elliot continued, his voice stronger now. I'm not asking for your approval. I'm asking for a chance to be part of this town again. Not as Santa, but as me. The crowd was quiet, but Sam saw tears in Ms. Larson's eyes. Saw Lily clapping fiercely. Even some of Mrs. Callahan's group looked uncertain. As the event went on, more people joined. Kids sat on Elliot's lap. Adults shared stories of his kindness. The protesters stayed, but their chants grew weaker. Sam's notebook was full of new ideas, new stories. But for now, he just watched, his heart full. They weren't winning everyone over, but they were winning. By dusk, the lot was alive with laughter and music. A small but defiant celebration. Sam looked at Elliot, who was laughing with a little girl, and Daniel, who was watching with a proud smile. This was what Christmas was supposed to be. The makeshift festival ended with a quiet victory. The crowd lingered, reluctant to leave the warmth of the lot, even as snow began to fall again. Sam helped clean up, stacking cups and folding tables, his mind buzzing with what they'd accomplished. They hadn't changed the whole town, but they'd changed something, maybe enough to start. Elliot was exhausted but lighter, his smile genuine for the first time in weeks. He and Daniel stood close, their hands brushing, no longer hiding. Sam watched them, his heart swelling. He'd always thought heroes were larger-than-life figures from his stories. But here they were, two ordinary men fighting for their place in the world. The next morning, the official Christmas festival went ahead in the town square. Mr. Callahan, in the Santa suit, drew a large crowd. But Sam noticed it was smaller than in years past. Whispers about Elliot's event had spread, and some families chose to stay home rather than support a festival that excluded him. The mayor, under pressure from the media, issued a vague statement about inclusivity, but it felt hollow. Mrs. Callahan's protest group was there, smaller now, their signs sagging in the snow. Sam didn't go to the festival. Instead, he sat with Elliot and Daniel in the hardware store, drinking hot cocoa and planning their next move. The letter Sam had written was still gaining traction online, and Mia had called to say she was working on a follow-up article. You've started something big, she told Sam. People are listening. But not everyone was ready to listen. At school, Jake and his friends hadn't let up. They left notes in Sam's locker, calling him names he refused to repeat. He ignored them, focusing on his notebook, where he wrote, Change doesn't happen all at once. It's a spark, then a flame, then a fire. He believed it, even when it hurt. His dad was different now, though. Tom started asking questions about Elliot, about Daniel, about what Sam had learned. One night, he sat Sam down and said, "I was wrong. I thought keeping quiet was easier. But you showed me it's not. I'm sorry." Sam hugged him, tears in his eyes. It wasn't forgiveness he needed, it was knowing his dad was trying. Elliot, too, was changing. He started opening the hardware store again, despite the occasional glares from passers-by. Some customers returned MS. Larson, Mr. Jenkins, even a few who'd signed the petition but now looked ashamed. "I didn't know the whole story," Mr. Jenkins mumbled. "Buying a hammer." Elliot just nodded, his kindness unwavering. Daniel stayed in Willow Creek longer than he'd planned, helping Elliot navigate the fallout. They talked about the future, maybe moving to Albany, maybe staying and fighting. "Whatever we do," Daniel said, "we do it together." Elliot smiled, a real smile, and Sam knew they'd be okay. The counter-petition reached 800 signatures, enough to make the mayor take notice. He called a town meeting, promising to address community concerns. Sam, Elliot, and Daniel attended, standing together in the back of the crowded town hall. Mrs. Callahan was there, her voice loud as ever, but fewer people clapped when she spoke. The tide was turning, slowly but surely. Sam took the microphone when it was his turn, his voice steady despite the eyes on him. "This isn't just about Elliot," he said. "It's about all of us. If we can't accept someone for who they are, what kind of town are we?" He saw his dad in the crowd, nodding, and felt a surge of pride. The meeting ended without a clear resolution, but the mayor promised to reconsider Elliot's role in next year's festival. It wasn't a win, not yet, but it was a step. As they left, Elliot pulled Sam aside. "You're the reason this is happening," he said. "You didn't have to do this, but you did." Sam shrugged, embarrassed. "I just wanted to help." But inside, he felt like the heroes in his story, small, scared, but unstoppable. That night, Sam added a new page to his notebook. Sometimes, the smallest voices make the biggest change. He thought of Lily, of MS. Larson, of his dad, of all the people who'd shown up when it mattered. They weren't a majority, but they were enough. Elliot and Daniel invited Sam over for dinner, a quiet celebration of their small victory. The hardware store was still a target for some, but it was also a beacon for others. Kids started stopping by again, asking for Santa, and Elliot greeted them with the same warmth he always had. As Christmas approached, Sam felt the town shifting. It wasn't perfect. Mrs. Callahan's group still met, and the graffiti hadn't stopped, but there was hope. Willow Creek was learning, one person at a time. Christmas morning arrived in Willow Creek, quiet and bright, the snow blanketing the town like a fresh start. Sam woke early, his notebook on his nightstand, filled with months of stories, plans, and dreams. He looked out his window at the hardware store across the street, its lights glowing softly. Elliot was there. He knew, probably sipping coffee with Daniel, planning their next steps. The past week had been a whirlwind. The mayor, under growing pressure, had invited Elliot to a private meeting. He didn't offer to reinstate him as Santa yet, but he promised to form a committee to promote inclusivity in future events. It was a small concession, but Sam saw it for what it was, a crack in the town's armor. Change was coming, even if it was slow. At school, things were different too. Jake and his friends had backed off, maybe because of the attention Sam's actions had drawn, or maybe because some of their own friends had started questioning them. Lily had started a small club for kids who felt different. And Sam joined, sharing his stories and listening to theirs. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Sam's dad had changed the most. Tom started speaking up at town meetings, challenging Mrs. Callahan's rhetoric, even inviting Elliot and Daniel over for dinner. It was awkward at first. Tom wasn't used to this new world, but he listened. Really listened. And Sam saw the man he'd always hoped his dad could be. On Christmas Eve, Elliot and Daniel hosted a small gathering in the lot behind the hardware store. It wasn't an official event. Just a few dozen people a mess. Larson, Lily, Mrs. Patel, and others who'd stood by them. Elliot wore his red jacket, handing out candy canes to kids who ran up, their laughter filling the air. Sam watched, his heart full, as Daniel stood beside Elliot, their hands clasped openly for the first time. Sam's notebook was nearly full now, but he added one last entry. The best stories don't end, they grow. And this one's just beginning. He looked at Elliot, who was laughing with a little boy, and Daniel, who was watching with a quiet pride. They were the heart of this story. But Sam knew he'd played a part too. He'd been the spark, the kid who refused to let hate win. The town wasn't fixed. Mrs. Callahan and her group still held sway, and some shops still refused to serve Elliot. But others had opened their doors wider. Mr. Jenkins apologized, bringing his grandkids to the hardware store for nails and stories. The librarian started a book club for inclusive stories. And Lily's brother, who'd left years ago, came back for a visit, his head held high. As the gathering wound down, Elliot pulled Sam aside. "I got you something," he said, handing him a small package. Inside was a leather-bound notebook, the kind Sam had always wanted but could never afford. "For your stories," Elliot said. "You're going to write some great ones." Sam hugged him, tears in his eyes. "You're still Santa," he said. Elliot laughed. A real, deep laugh. "Maybe. But you're the real hero here." That night, Sam sat by his window, the new notebook open. He wrote about Elliot, about Daniel, about a town that was learning to be better. He wrote about courage, about love, about the power of one voice to change everything. Willow Creek wasn't perfect, but it was his home, and he'd fight for it, just like Elliot had. Across the street, the hardware store glowed, a beacon in the dark. Sam smiled, knowing that somewhere in that light, two men were building a life together, and a boy with a notebook was writing a story that would never be forgotten.